On November 26, 2025, Guinea-Bissau's televisions flickered not with news anchors, but with stern-faced soldiers in military fatigues. The capital, Bissau, fell eerily silent, broken only by distant gunfire and sirens. The long-awaited election results were replaced by chaos. A military officer announced that the High Military Command for the Restoration of Order, or ACMRO, had seized control. Hopes for a peaceful transition evaporated as families huddled in fear, the reality of another coup settling in. The vibrant city life vanished, doors bolted, streets emptied, and the specter of military rule returned. Reports of gunfire near the presidential palace and clashes at the Electoral Commission spread panic. Military checkpoints appeared overnight, manned by tense, young soldiers. The dream of democracy was crushed in a single broadcast. 2 million citizens were left to wonder what would come next. The nightmare of military rule had returned and the nation held its breath. Guinea-Bissau's history is a cycle of coups and shattered hopes. Since independence from Portugal in 1974, the military has repeatedly toppled governments, undermining democracy. At least 9 coups or attempts have left institutions weak and citizens cynical. Corruption, ethnic rivalries, and drug trafficking have fueled instability, with shadow networks thriving on chaos. President Umbaló's 2023 dissolution of parliament deepened the crisis, leaving the country without checks and balances. Rule by decree created a vacuum where grievances festered and plots brewed. Despite natural resources, Guinea-Bissau remains among the world's poorest, trapped by endless political turmoil. The 2025 coup was not an anomaly, but the latest eruption in a half-century of crisis. The November 23, 2025, election was meant to restore order, but instead, it ignited a crisis. Voters turned out in droves hoping for change, but mistrust ran deep. President Embaló and challenger Fernando Dias da Costa both claimed victory before results were announced. Dueling press conferences fueled confusion and outrage, with each side presenting their own winning numbers. The Electoral Commission's calls for calm were drowned out by escalating rhetoric. Supporters of both camps flooded the streets, celebrations and protests blurring into chaos. The nation was split, with 2 men claiming the presidency. The democratic process, meant to resolve conflict, became its source. The deadlock was total and the country teetered on the edge. The stage was set for the military to intervene. Before dawn on November 26, gunfire erupted around the presidential palace. Soldiers swiftly seized key sites, the Ministry of the Interior, state media, and the Electoral Commission. Armored vehicles rolled through empty streets, roadblocks cut Bissau off from the world, and the airport was locked down. By sunrise, the coup was complete. That evening, the ACMRO appeared on television, suspending the election, dissolving government, and imposing a state of emergency. A curfew confined citizens to their homes. The military's grip was absolute. Markets closed, schools shuttered, and soldiers patrolled the streets. Fear and confusion replaced daily life. Whispers and rumors spread as official news vanished. The promise of democracy was violently snatched away. The question was no longer who won, but how long the military would rule. Guinea-Bissau was now a nation under siege. The cost of this new order was only beginning to be counted. 3 men now define Guinea-Bissau's fate. Umaro Sissoco Embaló, the deposed president, promised stability but dissolved parliament and claimed victory prematurely, fueling the crisis. Fernando Dias da Costa, the opposition's hope, called for reform but was sidelined by the coup. Denis N'Canha, the military leader, orchestrated the takeover, shifting from protector to ruler. Their ambitions and rivalries have plunged the nation into turmoil. The triangle of power, insider, outsider, and enforcer, now shapes Guinea-Bissau's uncertain future. The country's destiny hangs on their next moves. The junta moved swiftly to neutralize opposition. President Embaló was detained, confirming his ouster in a brief call from military custody. Domingos Simoes Pereira, opposition leader and former prime minister, was arrested, sending a chilling message to dissenters. Fernando Dias da Costa evaded capture, becoming a symbol for anti-coup sentiment, but also a fugitive. Other opposition figures went into hiding as the military purged dissent. Electoral Commission officials were also detained, halting the vote count, and silencing potential witnesses. The democratic process was not just suspended, it was dismantled. The junta ensured only their narrative would survive. Guinea-Bissau's political landscape was being erased, one arrest at a time. The ACMRO claimed their coup was to save Guinea-Bissau from collapse. They alleged a plot involving politicians and drug barons to rig the election, casting themselves as patriots. Many saw this as a classic coup pretext, an excuse to seize power and protect vested interests. Critics noted the military's own history of corruption and interference. The timing, just before results were due, suggested a preemptive strike, not a rescue. The junta's narrative of restoring order rang hollow for many. For Guinea-Bissau, it was another chapter of democracy held hostage. The world responded with swift condemnation. The African Union and ECOWAS demanded a return to constitutional order and the release of detained leaders. Portugal, the former colonial power, called for calm and a transparent electoral process. The United Nations urged restraint and respect for human rights, warning of international isolation. Guinea-Bissau's reliance on foreign aid means the junta risks sanctions and economic collapse. Yet, recent coups in the region show that international pressure often fails to reverse military takeovers. The junta is betting it can weather the storm. The world faces a dilemma: how to respond without worsening the plight of ordinary citizens. Guinea-Bissau's future now hangs in the balance. For Guinea-Bissau's 2 million citizens, the coup means fear, uncertainty, and hardship. Borders are closed, markets struggle, and daily life is paralyzed. The coup is a blow to democracy in West Africa, fueling a wave of military takeovers across the region. Each successful coup emboldens others, eroding democratic norms. Will the junta return power to civilians or entrench their rule? The answers will shape not just Guinea-Bissau, but the region's future. The world watches, hoping for a return to law, not rule by force. The path chosen now will echo for generations.